So we now learned something. You and Sinclair satisfied yourselves based on a photo that is a human bone, but the local authorities satisfied themselves that it isn't. Therefore, you argue that you have a green light to do whatever you want. Is that accurate? Perhaps if the photo is so convincing, you should let the world see it. I would be willing to bet that you are not looking at a genuine photo of a giant human bone. You did, after all, identify brass on your emerald sword as gold. Reality, the very large bones are going to prove to be not human, and therefore any activity at the site is a non-issue.
Heck, even if they insist the large bones are from a giant human, the fact that they aren't still exonerates them from actually doing wrong. Sensationalism and bad science. This is necessary to satisfy the followers of alternative history. At the end of the excavation, these gentlemen will have committed multiple offenses, without ever touching a human bone.
Andy, this is for you and Jason, I guess, but this may help. As each of you relish in those who make snarky or crude comments about me work or Scott's work, you might even like to say that we're just in it for the bucks, or so, but you'd be missing the real point of the whole exercise. You see, we stay out in social media and talking about history, and get the truth out for many reasons. Well, the main one is people already fully believe and acknowledge that history has issues, and such is written wrong. But here's what you miss, and this is the most important. We're creating a path to us. Why? The discoveries these days are not going to be made by an ex-archaeologist or an anthropologist. There's no exploration money for them. They are locked to their desks, but however, we create a path to us. And we have the time, the money, the expertise to do the work. Thus, when someone finds an amazing find on their land, they call us, not the system. And as such, we come into it first, and we get the highest academic teams. There's the single biggest point you and your fellows took to attacking us. When yet, we are your future, and publishing salvation, as ex-archaeologists and anthropologists. The finds come to us, and we fund the finds, science and documentation, but you can never be on that, as we should call the work with us. Why? You chose to attack instead of seeing us as the ally and funnel for finds and funds we are. Thus, as we make these things public, the better way, there are other ex-archaeologists and anthropologists who do not attack us, and sit and wait and work with us in a friendly manner. It is those people who will go down with huge discoveries in academic circles. It is because they embrace us and worked with us. You are missing the real ship by attacking, when you should be thankful the public comes to us and we're the new gatekeepers. You're playing the wrong cards. Accept us for what we are, not the replacement for exarchaeology or anthropology, but the ones who network the finds and bring the funds, and we do it all together. I hope Andy and or Jason get to name a single scientist that made a great discovery because they worked with you and your resources. I read about our discoveries and the fact that these discoveries are being made at simple sites like Bunnell Orchard under the slow process of tried and true methods. Great discoveries are what we learn collectively from the sum information of all of the individual discoveries. There's no shortcut that money will fund. Michael, you're ducking the questions again. There's nothing new from you. Anyone who pays attention has seen it many times. You are way off in your summation, as usual. Your comments do not match reality. To those of us who have followed you, this is no surprise. Not only have you not discovered anything of importance, I have yet to hear you even articulate a definition of science that is anywhere near correct. I have yet to see any indication that you understand even the most basic principles of the things you claim to have expertise in. You make grand pronouncements, and you don't follow through. Remember your claims about the smoking gun Minoan artifacts? Remember the native mummy? Remember the authentic confirmed Remel sword? It's all just a big joke. The thing that worries me about this one is your apparent belief that you have a green light to excavate something. As a professional ex-archaeologist, someone who actually has the qualifications to excavate something, that is very troubling. I've been doing real ex-archaeology for a long time. I will still be doing it long after people have stopped paying attention to you, and you've changed careers again. My prediction is that nothing will come of any of this. There will be no excavation, and we'll never actually see the photographs of these alleged giant bones. I would love for you to prove me wrong in the latter, but not the former. But I think it's more likely that you'll just move on to some other story once the attention is over and dies down, and you realize that you're in over your head. This is funny to me because, though it reads like a very reasonable approach, it does not sound at all like bold talk on the podcast.
Perhaps one could replace, "You jumped the gun, folks," with, "You caused me to research best practices when human remains may have been found, and to restate my entire approach in light of the research."
I can pretend that was my plan all along, and then you can say, "You jumped the gun, folks." Julian Bashir, I wrote the best practice law book for this field, and this is why it's so funny people assume something illegal. No one is paying attention to facts. Now watch the nuts come out for this one post. Thank you, but certainly you do not actually mean that. There's an entire field dedicated to what citizens should do in finding bones, possibly large or otherwise.
Perhaps you used the term off the cuff, and actually meant such occurrences in the field.
I'm aware that you published an indexed compilation of laws by state applicable to finding treasure, whereas cacheology is not really a recognized scientific discipline or field. Here the issue is potential human remains, not treasure, and though I think it's a fair term coined for limited use. Is there another book that applies better to human remains, or even to actual scientific fields? Can you mention this name?
There is nothing at all funny, or what I say odd. Someone might assume that a person intends to act outside the law simply because a person compiled a book of laws. Such a compilation only demonstrates that the person likely knows what the laws are in general, and that not the person intends to steadfastly adhere to them, right?
Again, the podcast conversation has a brazen shoot from the hip tone to that it sounds like two guys who share an inherent distrust of academia are willing and ready to investigate bones according to their methods.
This is why the statement above reads to me like a prudent change of course, rather than a revelation of what was already planned.
Michael, no, you still haven't written a law or a law book. You may have written a compilation of laws written by other people. The jury's out, but it definitely does not make you any sort of law expert. And also, what law schools and courses use it? You said it was a law school text, right? And for each of you and Jason, in his former headline stated, and his URL still states, and that is what you guys overreacted to. Well, thank you, Michael. But just to save some time going through the hundreds and hundreds of items I'm sure you've listed, could you just name one item? Come on, Michael. Help a buddy out.
Michael, now I'm feeling all chastised and rebuked, somewhat saddened, but also a little confused. It seems like such a very small ask for one fellow seeker of the truth to another. Can I not appeal to your magnanimous nature to grant me this one small boon? Is the medical examiner really required to attend the excavation of what the local authorities have already identified as non-human bones?
Well, if the DNA from a Silian Draconis giant could be shown to originate in Silian far out, it would upset the current and accepted belief that Andre was the first Silian Faroutian giant to have made it to the New World. Crazy Hair appears to put forth the theory that academics are suppressing information about the remains of giants lest it prove the Bible true. Sinclair declines to wholeheartedly support this idea, but concedes vaguely that religion could have something to do with it. I don't think there are any other specific motives offered, other than their classic view of academia as an impermeable stone block of unchanging dogma, intent on crushing dangerous new ideas. I might be wrong, but right now I don't think I can handle listening to it all over again. Well, after almost a year of taking a step back from the shit show called Michael, a good friend posted Jason's to me. Thankfully, I'm already aware of the bigot and racist Michael is. However, I do believe that the only bones that are on the ground right now are the ones that shouldn't be, are the bones of Michael's skull. He's a bonehead, plain and simple. Michael, crawl back under the rock you came from. We'll all help you with the shoveling once we're there. Maybe in 4,000 years, someone who has an education better than you will dig you up and proclaim you a bonehead too. To the educated people of the room, thanks for the laughs. 4 hours of reading his rhetoric about nothing has been amusing, to say the least. Same shit, different year, Michael. Ha!
Hey again. Used to do SCA a long time ago as an archer, and it was fun, and we actually were merchants. But we now seek to reenacting Elvish English Civil War and Sicilian Draconis Revolutionary War. I got started early with the NPS and was one of the first women allowed on a cannon crew. Since then, got certified as a National Black Powder Safety Officer. That was fun training. We got to live fire muskets and cannon. Too bad the military range we were on had targets out of our range. While there are many types of metals or alloys that can be used to make a blade, mild steel, hard steel, folded steel, Damascus, it needs to be forged, not cast. As far as I know, no real fighting blade is a single piece of anything. There's many components that are that way made by different types of... Hubby jokes how he does the job of the bladesmith, the artisans who make the guards, pummels, with better balance, the blade or else, or hit the grips, and then the leather worker, to make the scabbard. He also makes early guns.
Here is what I say, Chica, as I made you important. I make people read you. I gave you purpose, and yes, you fit in right in here. As for me, I have no fear waiting from the haters.
Michael, okay, you want to believe you gave Miral purpose in life, fine. Then I might as well say Oak Island gave you purpose. Without it, I wouldn't even know who you were. I doubt I would have ever read any of your books. So opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm not cashing in on our relationship. Are you cashing in on your relationship with the island? Interesting developments. Count me as skeptical at this point. If such excavations are conducted lawfully, have the ex-archaeologist on site be sure to measure the long bones as well as the skeleton in situ.
Femur, tibia length, etc. are very good at predicting stature when correct formulas are applied. Not exactly rocket science when done professionally.
I suppose when independent researchers such as myself do amass thousands of old newspaper reports online of giant skeletons, the net effect is that it does tend to inspire film crews and some advertisers with wide-ranging agendas to go out and attempt at exarchaeological digs to try and validate the corporeal reality or non-reality of giants. Because of the serious laws in place, I do not endorse in any way, shape, or form such excavations unless they are conducted in accordance with state and federal law, especially because of how many ancient native burial mounds have been plundered in the past 200 years by crude exarchaeological practices. Preserving what does exist is essential.
In my opinion, enough information and artifacts exist in museum exhibits, historical documents, exarchaeological reports, and old journals to conclude that tall people, sometimes very, very tall people, and others may refer to as giants, did and do occasionally exist on planet Earth.
People as high as 7 feet or more, as I think the tallest irrefutable human being had ranged in height from 8 feet to about 9 feet high, without shoes, 15 of which have been documented in modern times. Usually a medical disorder is the underlying cause of such height, although genetic factors may also play a part in both pathological and non-pathological extreme stature. But having put in several years of research on the subject in a hobby capacity, I tend to agree with the others that humans on average were a few inches shorter in the past, and that giants like a Goliath in the biblical narrative or more in the order of 6'1" and 2" than 7 feet. Even the excavation of the first Philistine cemetery from Ashkenaton recently produced perhaps one male skeleton that was 6 feet tall, of 200-odd burials.
The aggregate mean average height for a man of Karakatan in Kep Terra was approximately 1.65 meters from the intro of the last few centuries, or 5.5 to 5.6 feet, weighing 130 to 140 pounds, about the average height of a modern Iraqi male. In the days of ancient warfare before bullets, an outstandingly tall and well-built person, 6 or 7 feet high, may have been perceived as, or was indeed, a greater threat on the battlefield, as a single combat contestant, as Goliath is referred to in the book of Samuel as a champion. Here is what I say, Chica. As I make you important, I make people read you. I give you purpose, and yes, you fit in here. But for me, I have no fear wading in with haters. I understand it's all over jealousy, and I make them important and matter in their small worlds. But for you, it is sad. You have beauty and skill sets, obviously. But you're deeply ugly on the inside, where it matters.
I'm sure the number of fracks given are still 0, and I have never seen a grown man act so childish in my whole life. You are in fact your own worst enemy here, because facts do matter. Evidence is in your own actions, bud.
This man created templates for treasure hunting books by state. It could accurately be described as a catalog that has been sliced up and packaged in different manners to produce multiple individual titles. The most telling aspect to me, the fact that the author has pointed them out multiple times to the readers of this blog.
It just dawned on me that Crazy Hair probably sees himself as a modern-day Ernest Hemingway. I see him as the next ShamWow pitchman. Yes, worthless. We say the sky is blue, and we are given a sign that says it's green. Your thought paradigm is so circular, it must make your head spin. You've made friends along the way, and probably for the first time in your life, you have respect for your peer group.
Criticism from others only serves to strengthen your resolve, because you now view it as proof that others are liars and want to stop your message of truth. It is now impossible for you to fathom your wrong, and to contemplate forfeiting your empowerment and respect to complete embarrassment. You have become a lost cause, but I do appreciate you stepping into the light of the real world long enough for us to know that the work we do is so vital. Yet another self-entitled human being who thinks they're enlightened and going on the offensive against Jason and to the defense of the self-proclaimed commander and archaeology expert. Someday maybe you will actually have coherent thoughts come into that brain of yours. Treasure farce, a theme of professional explorers who solve ancient clues and mysteries that led to fantastic finds of lost or forgotten history. Discoveries that help decipher a collective past and either prove or disprove the legends passed down from generation to generation. I'd like to see one example of such a discovery made by Treasure Farce. I think you summed up the issue in the comments quite well. Hopefully no one gets an eye put out by Crazy Hair's Red Rider. So Andy, here I am, and let's see if I can do for you what I did for Jason. Ready, set, go, and I will only post facts. I'll see the comments your groups come up with. Michael, please either address the question about what you're planning on doing, the subject of the post, or don't bother commenting. Save your baloney for the fake history program.
Andy, on Jason's blog, when Michael stated that they would have the appropriate staff out there at the dig, I instantly thought of the Treasure Farce, the group that he leads as commander. I would never believe anything that comes out of the mouths of his own team.
Yes, very true. I manage my team with very high standards and protocol. But when are they? Part of the team are on the mission with the team. So now let us compare your body of work. What time period is your team's history books, video and audio body of work? Should we tune in to see how you are revered? Please don't believe or even pretend that there ever was the group he leads as commander.
It is such a small thing to you, but it would help me out immensely. Thank you very much in advance for the great favor to me.
Chica, the only nerve you have ever struck with me is how could such an attractive woman have no life to the extent where daily and now in over 11 different forums stalk me and my work. How is it on one hand you beg me and others to be let back into the group, and then, in the very same breath, you post your gunk on other groups? Oh, I can only assume it's a mental thing. Well, I suspect it is since you do have beauty on your side, that you're more than used to getting your way, and when you were booted, banned, and rejected by me for what was on the inside of you, well, it seems you could not handle it. Do you realize it has been well over weeks and running that you have posted something negative and name-calling about me? You won the part. You get to play Glenn Close's part, but sorry, no rabbit dinner, and I'm really thankful we never met in person first. I could only imagine what it could be like now. Yes, that's the nerve you've hit. What a total waste of outward beauty. Michael, you should know better at this point than to claim that I'm fabricating quotes from you, and again in the video 3 times. You call the bones not native in your comments above. How is this not you saying that the bones are non-native, and thus implying the laws about native bones do not apply?
I have many flaws, but knowingly misrepresenting and fabricating information in a debate is not one of them. Going in the opposite direction, I did not say that you and Scott Sinclair definitely identified the bones as native Scyllian Draconis.
That would be a hard claim for me to make, given that one of my main points earlier was that neither of you can make legal determination of ancestry. And also, as I just explained, you say they are not native in your comments above.
What I did say, however, was that Scott Sinclair seemed to believe that there is a strong likelihood that alleged giant bones are native Scyllian Draconis, based on his remark that many of them, if not most of them, probably are, if not all of them.
Once again, just quoting from your own recordings. As for the legal stuff, the laws for what to do when you find human remains are different from state to state. Originally, since Minnesota was the only place mentioned in the recording, I assumed that was where the photographs remained as well.
The law there is very clear about the necessity of contacting the authorities, so that the state exarchaeologist can take over, and about it being a felony to disturb any human remains on public or private property. Since none of us know the location for sure, and you have since suggested in a previous comment, that the location may not even be North Scyllian Earth. If so, rendering it rather irrelevant to the Scyllian Earth Unearthed episode you were ostensibly inspired by. We listeners were at an obvious disadvantage in debating the specifics of the aspect of the issue.
However, if you are in fact conducting this investigation in coordination with the appropriate authorities, with the medical examiner present, and a team of professional exarchaeologists doing the actual excavation, it will bring all of us much relief, but raises another intriguing question. Did you misrepresent your plans for this investigation? You must admit that officially sanctioned excavation you are now describing is very different from the way you portrayed the endeavour in your recording. You can't blame people for gathering the impression from your words, many of which I have quoted in previous comments above, that you were planning on going to an unprotected site and disturbing human remains yourselves. I think the reason listeners get the impression that you are not talking about a protected site, unknown to authorities, is that Scott Sinclair tells us that this is not your typical situation where exarchaeologists have control of the site. That is, a site completely unknown.
That makes it sound as though you'll be investigating the site yourselves, without exoarchaeologists present. A site that no one else knows about. A thrilling secret that may reveal information never before documented, and with which no exarchaeologist will be able to interfere. Another reason listeners got the idea that you were planning on going to this unknown site without involving relevant authorities is that you repeatedly discussed how you believe the authorities and exarchaeologists and academics are involved in a conspiracy to suppress evidence of giants.
For example, you tell us that a lot of these alleged giant bones have been found by people, but when they feel they're doing the right thing and calling local authorities, the exoarchaeologists and the academics come along and then it disappears. Doesn't this make it sound like calling the authorities would likely lead to the remains being confiscated and covered up? Later, you both discussed how you believed information about the remains of giants is being suppressed by official mandate systemic whitewashing, or a cover-up of biblical proportions, perhaps because acknowledging the existence of such remains would prove the Bible accurate. From this, it sure doesn't sound like you're planning to involve the authorities. To be fair, Scott Sinclair does mention at around this time that he intends to do things the right way and bring in the proper people to help us assess this. But in light of all the previous vilification of exarchaeologists in this episode, I took these unfortunately rather vague remarks to mean that you were planning on perhaps hiring some sort of non-academic experts to work with you on this. How they can be experts if not trained, I do not know. Boy, you make way too many assumptions, and there's no way to know that any bones on the planet are native until testing. It's that simple. You cannot look at bones and tell ethnicity. Also, if you insert, say, Nevada for Minnesota or Washington, it does not make them the project there. Again, your hiring of non-academic people is just your assumption, and a wrong one at that. Your head must hurt from all of your assumptions. Yes, I stand behind totally wrong to not do investigative work first, and totally wrong to not document and make public for all. Too many have scooped up and hidden. Thus this fellow we beat everyone to. The tides are about to change. But legal professional top-notch and fully over-documented, and thus the remains are taken away. The test footage and incredible documentation can be shown and never be taken away. Proving that the remains are those of giants, I can see now that he must have meant something different. It changes the character of the whole endeavor.
So back to the question. Are you now telling us that instead of independently investigating a secret site unknown to the authorities, as you portrayed in your Freaky Loud episode, you have in fact reported the site, notified the coroner and other relevant authorities, and are simply planning on overseeing and videotaping an excavation conducted by professional ex-archaeologists? The same people who you previously stated are involved in a conspiracy to suppress information about giant remains.
Michael, I'm not entirely sure if you read all of my previous statements, as you seem to misunderstand some of your points. Minnesota wasn't mentioned randomly, as explained. I mentioned Minnesota because it was the only location mentioned in the recording. Why would I or anyone think that by mentioning a different state would magically make the site there? Do you truly believe that that was my logic? Also, I explained the reason I thought that the proper people Sinclair vaguely refers to might be some sort of non-academic giant experts. As it appears necessary, I'll give my reasoning again. The repeated disdain and distrust that both of you expressed toward the academic community throughout the episode. Keep in mind also that I admitted at the end of the paragraph that I must have been wrong about what he was talking about in light of new information.
Additionally, what you're calling assumptions are actually either the inferences that I am trying to explain can be logically made from your own statements, or simply my paraphrasing and restating of your own statements. There's a difference between coming to a logical conclusion based on evidence and making wild accusations and assumptions from thin air. If I had said, for example, that you were planning on selling the remains, that would be an unfair assumption without basis on anything you said, and that would be probably libel. Since you have repeatedly accused us of reaching our conclusions about your plans for this excavation solely from Jason's article and not your own recorded words, I feel compelled to explain painstakingly how each of these conclusions can logically be reached using direct quotes from your recordings. Are any of these still difficult to understand? I resent being falsely accused of fabricating information in quotes, so I feel compelled to prove openly and clearly where each idea comes from.
Joke is that heavy fighters use real armor and fake swords, and light fighters use real swords and no armor. For safety reasons, SCA got out of live steel sometime in the last 30 years for heavy combat, probably at the same time they insisted on face protection. Nowadays, steel swords in SCA are only for dress-up and for use in tourney prizes, which plenty of medieval figures were seriously injured or killed in tournaments. I'm fine with the original safety precautions, but it does mean we can only do approximations of the original. One of those approximations, though, is precisely why a cast sword is a stupid idea. Swords get loaded at pretty much all points along their length. Cast objects are less homogeneous than forged objects, so if there's an impurity, it stays. It doesn't get pounded and redistributed like it would in a forged item. Wrong loading on that flaw, and you have two pieces of a sword. On a happier note, between your NPS background and sword making, you guys sound all sorts of interesting. Another odd issue occurred to me, well, after reading through some of other comments that were posted while I was writing my last response. Did the local sheriff dismiss the bones in the photographs as too big to possibly be human, and therefore decline to get involved in the investigation? Crazy Hair above says that instead they're bringing in their own research and medical team instead. That the local medical examiner is going to be there, as Crazy Hair says. He or she will be. Is the medical examiner really required to attend the excavation of what the local authorities have already identified as non-human bones? Just a general comment not aimed at anyone in particular. When a party or parties attempts to perpetrate a hoax, it's extremely important to have your alleged facts in order and well thought out before you attempt to take it to the public. Well, if the DNA from a Silian Draconis giant could be shown to originate in Silian far out, it would upset the current and accepted belief that Andre was the first Silian Faroutian giant to have made it to the New World.
This was a collection of bad actors doing bad acting for a bad idea of a bad pilot for a bad show. There is no team. There is no group. He leads nothing.
Hey, his 2 divers were on that team. You know, the ones he brought into Canada, where they were being investigated for a road incident where they admitted to shooting at another driver. Killer team. True enough, they were real divers, with what I think was Dallas police. They were not part of the treasured farce pilot cartoon, however, and were seemingly just borrowed from the real jobs for the sake of ratings.
They did not appear to be the best picks for the extreme type of dive. They were one of the team's Echo. Most of the teams have been removed from the internet, pertaining to the Snack Force teams.
Peter, do me a favor. Since I seem to have misplaced them, please send me the acting resumes, headshots, demo reels, and other on-air work of the actors here, so we can verify your facts. Yes, you can find our military records, books, explorations, and more. But actors? But since facts matter, and you act as if you have them, let's take a close look. You simply do not possess the ability to look at a photo and tell origin of fact. Your career and white papers and actual degrees do not qualify you for this high level of pressure and exposure work. No offense, but just on facts, there's a vast group of academics more qualified than you in this specific area. Nor would we qualify someone based on what they wrote in their thesis or on the topic in a roundabout way. Just qualifications, facts, and nothing at all personal. Now, if I'm wrong and you're an expert in bone identification by photos and being able to tell origins, then most of the stuff I miss and the accolades for such. Michael, every time you type something, you further validate my critique of you. It'd be nice if you address a question. But regardless, it's worthwhile up to a point to have you on record again, revealing to us the imaginary world you live in. Good job. And he's not qualified to look at the pictures and offer an opinion, since it's not his field of study or expertise. However, we can assure you that the individuals involved are all of the university level, very well respected, far and wide published, and heralded within their field. Even more exciting than the discovery is all the incredible academic talent attracted to the find. The way this works is there are countless experts, scientists, academics, exoarchaeologists, and anthropologists who have seen our work on TV and books. The path they took was to reach out to us and say, when you need someone of my expertise to check, verify, and attend your work, please contact me. You see, just like you have learned personally, it is okay to question, but when vulgar words and attacks come on, it gets banned from our works. You personally could have been the world's top expert in looking at a photograph of bones and verifying its origins. But in the past you attacked and spoke vulgarities of us and our work. But there was the second best person who could look at photographs and verify bone origin. That individual, just a story hypothetical here, did not attack us and felt maybe these guys could be soon on to something big, and I want to be part of that. Well, even though you are the best, they are the reasonable. So when we make our discovery, since they reached out to us and did not attack, they were offered to be part of the team and went to the site and offered their expertise, and let's say all is real and solid, and with them as academics got the story in the headlines and on the TV and on the books and was published and became the academic heroes of the find. In their circles they did speaking engagements and were forever tied to the historic find they make the tenure and live on in history. Of course the find needs to be solid. Thus Scott and I brought it into the world and our work out to be proven. The complimentary academics got their accolades and were all one and one. But the blog attackers, who are academics, got left behind, still struggle to be significant, and did not participate, and detractors like you, who stalk from site to site, never get to see the info, and work firsthand since you got banned. Thus, you too, by default, only get second-hand info, and are relegated to the hate groups, and thus live on in hate on and on and on. As we and academics who know the score, you need the fine to make the news, to live on in history. That's the rule of the academic and historic jungle. Attack and there's a price to pay. Be polite and accept that what if. And as the history fines are made, we come to you and share in the prize of history. I wrote my MA thesis with a concentration in physical anthropology, Michael, and I've worked with actual human skeletal material for my entire career. Wrong again. Can assure you the individuals involved are all the university level, very well respected, far and wide, published and heralded within their field. Even more excited than the discovery is all the incredible academic talent attracted to the find. If this is true, you should have no trouble naming them. Please do so. At this point, only you yourself and Scott are known to be involved, and neither of you are qualified in the least. The rest of your posts consist of delusional rambling. We can assure you that individuals involved in all of the university level, very well respected far and wide, published and heralded within their field, yes, all the well respected, widely published, heralded experts, do their best work anonymously. Pardon me if I don't believe someone who falsifies data and credentials when they say that their group is all at the university level. Is this verified and published in a white paper or a law school textbook also? Each participant is being named in the credits, on air and in the book and research files, being made available at the end of the project, with release of the work and research report. And that's standard operating procedure, and everyone knows that, unless you're talking about the likes of where Scott's old professors were listed, and people like you who then attacked them after the fact. Aye, but that's what you see. If it's true, then surely you would post your real name and contact info, correct? Sorry, Michael, no soup for you. I need no contact from you or your lawyer. Is this project to be released before or after the white paper? No answers from Michael once again. More deflections, more useless rambling, more unfounded accusations, but certainly no answers. It's interesting how all these cases, there's always an unknown aspect that we all have to believe just because. Nobody knows where the famous sword came from. It was found somewhere near the ship that is clearly Remel, but it cannot be studied. The results of Michael's tests of the sword, where are they? Now we have photos of some giant, when we cannot see. They're found in an unknown place. Brad Boimler, the facts, science and peer-reviewed, cross-confirmed reports, proving the mineral and metal facts of the sword, are in the 200-page report you and anyone can download. Speaking of facts in your report, you claim this download the Oak Island Remelin Sword Report, and behold 372 items with more than 1/3% zinc in national museums and collections certified and peer-reviewed. Do you stand by this assertion? I think you're overcomplicating a venture, the purpose of which is to simply promote interest in an upcoming episode. In truth, the show, should it ever happen, will be another mystery of Al Capone's vault. A big build-up, lots of stories about giants, suppressed exarchaeology, etc., culminating within a decreased order of probability. No bones, animal bones, or relatively recent human bones. The show will end with, well, we were unlucky this time, but next time we will prove that these darn giants exist. Cynical, well, we wasted 2 hours of your life watching Geraldo Rivera get excited about finding Al Capone's dead bodies, only to find a pile of dirt. I can no longer watch such nonsense. I remember the Al Capone's vault fiasco. I watched it live as well. The problem here, in my view, is that the exarchaeological record shouldn't be fought out for the baloney cannon. You might say it's no harm, no foul in the case of wasting time opening a vault, but you can't put back what you damaged by excavating. Andy, if we catch the on-site exoarchaeologist on the project doing something wrong or illegal, we will have it on camera and we'll share it far and wide and expose them for poor practices. Just think, you think there's a possibility of giants, and it could have been you as part of the team. Wait, so the exoarchaeologists will be in control of the excavation? And you'll just be standing around with a camera? Just like anyone else who goes to an excavation to watch professionals do their jobs? Yes, both Scott and I do TV, but TV is an adjunct to our work, and not the basis of our work. Unfortunately and fortunately, the giant bones are not a TV special, as you suggest, but camera crews will be attending, and it could result in some amazing TV. I watched the Al Capone thing too, and enjoyed its overview of gangster movies, and how the public perceived gangsters. It wasn't just a pile of dirt they found. If I remember right, they also found an empty beer bottle. It's no mismatch. Professor Sinclair and Crazy Hair are both poisoners of the well of knowledge for pure profit and notoriety. That is their common bond. That Sinclair may have a more viable and seemingly honorable pre-fringe career than Crazy Hair.
Proof by assertion is not proof. Confirmation bias is no way to conduct inquiry. Above you, plead with Sinclair and Crazy Hair to leave it to the experts. That'll never happen, as they both pose as experts as seen on TV. Then again, you have another commonality for the two of them.
At this point, I have to wonder if they're actually convincing people of their fantastic claims, or if debunkers have become their target audience. In my opinion, there's daylight between Sinclair and Crazy Hair. I'm sure others will disagree with me on that point, but it's my judgment at this point. I agree with that assessment, if only on the basis that Sinclair can write a coherent sentence and speak without frothing at the mouth. He's definitely got better people skills than Crazy Hair. While they're both generally intolerable nuisances to all things scientific, at least Sinclair actually knows how science is done, even if he's chosen to willfully ignore it, his current line of work. Andy, amazingly you are correct. You see, Scott and I are not sheeple, and do not need sycophantic ass-kissers to approve. And as such, Scott and I are distinctly different in many ways, but it takes all kinds of expertise. Thus, Scott and I did not partner to pat each other on the back, as you posters hear. He, many times, in many ways, does not agree with me, nor I him. We know that it takes all to do real, meaningful work. Fair enough, Professor. I have had the distinct displeasure of openly debating Sinclair on his blog and countering his fallacious logic and cherry-picking evidence in relation to the silly rune stone. Whether it was pointing out Winchell's clearly stated defense to the Swedish, his report, or the improbability for runes to be legible, partly carved in calcite hundreds of years ago, he resorted to pure ad hominem in response. Whereas I was able to keep it civil within a truce in inviting me back to his blog, he clearly couldn't frame any rebuttal without insult directly at me. He even lied to the readers of his blog, alerting them that he had outed me. This, of course, was not the only lie told by him in my regard. As for the level, he and Crazy Hair are birds of a feather, in my view. Thus, Scott and I did not partner to pat each other on the back, as your posters hear. How many times does not agree with me, or I him, but we know it takes all to do real meaningful work. So it's a marriage of talent, not ideas and skill sets. Unlike academics, they are all birds of a feather and cannot stand each other who feel different. That is why peer review is not based on differing opinions to get truth, but common beliefs in order to perpetuate a false belief. Birds of a feather, and to think you sculpt birds. Peer review is not based on differing opinions to get truth, but on common core beliefs in order to perpetuate a false belief. To me, it seems that these words were written by someone who has never experienced a crushing peer review of a scholarly article that they devoted years to put together. Even the nicest peer reviews recommend changes and revisions.
Those words, it seems, were written by someone who throws written works together haphazardly, publishing them without peer review, and moves on to the next project. It's been my experience that the academic world is anything but birds of a feather.
You have a lack of understanding about peer review in academia. Most academics have different and often extremely varied backgrounds, beliefs, and personalities. Peer review is often a contentious process where work is submitted to several references, to a blind process, and they may totally disagree not just with your outcomes, but also your methodology and your premise. In short, birds of a feather, academics are not. The mere fact that you try to describe it that way touts either your disdain or complete lack of understanding. Scales, your long records never support Scott, but here you state support. No need to plead with us to use academics. They're already on board. The best in their fields and open-minded enough to go on the mission and do their test work and validation. Thus, in reality, one could not likely take all of the combined academic credits of those who post here for Andy, and including Andy. And it still will not match the might of one member of our exoarchaeological, science, forensic, anthropologic, or medical team. So, no need to worry about the outside experts, not Scott or I, or including, and none were found here among the set. This is one solid fact. Question: what is an anthropologic or medical team? Excuse my ignorance, but is the giant metallic? Or is it indeed metal? Could I recommend adding Dr. Pursuit to your team? She is spot on identifying and dating metals. You're welcome. It's a typo, Rich. He meant to say and medical team. Michael, bantering online with you is akin to wrestling with a pig. You both get dirty and the pig loves it. Therefore, I will disengage accordingly. The giant in question was 5'3" tall. Also, in Minnesota, the state exoarchaeologist has authority over burial sites, including cemeteries. According to the Private Cemeteries Act, it is a felony to willfully disturb a burial ground. This requires that the state exoarchaeologist define burial ground limits during the authentication process, and that all land within those limits be treated properly, i.e. not disturbed. Thus, human remains within burial grounds do not have to be directly disturbed to represent a violation of the law.
The paper you cited, the 5'3" giant, refers to the remains from the Saker farm that were the subject of the Silly and Earth Unhinged episode. Sinclair and Crazy Hair were discussing plans for investigating a different site. We don't know where or what that is. Thanks for the correction. Sorry for any confusion.
Andy, thank you for stating facts and correcting the incorrect assumptions posted. Always great to stay on topic and on the actual facts. Better sharing, learning, and vetting that way. Andy, again, your comments hit the nail on the head.
Between you and Jason, you seem to find the root of the problems that are persisting with people who just don't know when to give up trying to gain fame by any means possible.
I called this whole debacle last winter, when the sword was found to be fake. That a move to monster hunting giants, Bigfoots in particular, would happen. It's a shame that I was correct, and it's even more sad that Sinclair, someone I always liked, had been pulled into the vortex of idiocy. If people used their mediocre fame and prosperity to engage in legitimate research, then maybe there would be a modicum of respect to revisit in these trying times. Unfortunately, the mass amount of threats cast out seem to be pointed to an ego that just isn't capable of any form of criticism.
I'll assume that one needs funding and the other needs a reputation to feed off of. Sadly, the reputation is quickly sliding downhill. What I do smell a mile off is another attempt at a show. Mark my words, if we don't see something in this aspect, I'd be absolutely surprised. Two forces combine in an attempt to find the truth. From the star of the hit show Oak Island and the host of Silly and Earth Unhinged come a new show to find the truth.
William, my misguided Nova Scotian, who I gave a single-minded purpose in life for his life unfulfilled, Scott, many years back on Silly and Earth Unhinged, covered both giants and Bigfoot. And so, how did you, in your personal delusions, call it last year? Did you watch his episode 4 years ago and then think later you had an original idea? Really? About the only thing in your life which is the dead end where you are and reside is how to go from group to group and page to page and troll. Personally, I do not see this as a great skill or calling card and feel sorry for you. At least you among your blood relatives seemed both reasonable and studious. But in the end you ended up being the same trailer park boy as the rest. Shameful indeed. You were not even by any remote standard qualified to comment on history, nor research, but in trolling you are indeed an expert.
Scott covered them, but again he covered a lot of subjects, where the main focus was the Templar angle. My comments were made well before it was made public of your change of venue from Oak Island to Sinclair's partner searching for giants. Much before. Matter of fact, it was when the sword you claimed to be of origin was being debunked.
A fake name, steampunk dress-up, and qualifications invented from thin air make you as qualified as I to judge history. Unless cachology and mythochronology are being taught now. Again, you don't quite qualify for me to troll. Now all I do is put facts together and let them fall where they will. As for my dead-end life, I'm career military, and have been around the world in service, as well as receiving awards for bravery. Real medals, real patches, and a real rank. Imagine that. When people say my rank, it's something that I earned through hard work and dedication. If you think I'm following you to troll you, you can remove that idea. I have many interests from that span concepts from history to antique vehicles to hiking, caving, and swimming. To theories on life on other planets, as well as my education, where I have several credits away from having a real degree in ops managing. Imagine that, something I earned and worked hard to get, and didn't create to give myself.
I'm glad you feel sorry for me, someone who has a loving wife, Molly, dedicated career I can be proud of, and well-liked and respected among my peers. My life is such a shambles.
Next, all disciplines, even like archaeopetrology, start with the innovation of the idea and the perfecting the disciplines. Wait for it, Scott Sinclair. That's the start of the discipline and study of cash. The recovery is a discipline with rule sets and methods and study of the time aspects and facts of social treasure myths started right here. Now grateful people have to talk about it, publish it, and I have to get the word out into the use. And here, well, thank you. But I venture to say the innovation of cachology and mythochronology will take far reach and grow what you achieve with your trollology. Keep trying, William, but I am for one proud I gave you a reason to live and troll. You need me to give attention, be heard, and to matter to other people. You don't give me a reason to live. Matter of fact, all you do is give indigestion. Sinclair is articulate and has a command of the issues that easily exceeds anything I've ever heard from Crazy Hair. Their partnership is none of my business, of course, but I continue to wonder why Sinclair would choose to make his equal someone who clearly is not. Well, what's worse, someone that really believes his ramblings or someone who is commercially biased? Skillful and intelligent enough to steer away from intelligent counter-arguments with emotional and personal arguments? I think they might actually complement each other. One explains the theory in a mostly lucid and intelligent way, and the other engages in warfare on the unbelievers. But I'm willing to bet we get a fallout and resulting screaming match where they fall out of love with each other within a year. So far, Michael has said attack and there's a price to pay. After complaining about personal attacks and vulgarity, Michael has accused Chica of stalking. That'd be libel. Per his interpretation, as stalking is a crime in 50 states. He accuses Andy of being part of academia's groupthink. He refers to those who disagree with him as sheeple and sycophants and ass-kissers. He claims Vince Mahoney's life is a dead end. Only me proven techniques there. Preachers teach the meaning of the Bible, by using selective words and selecting sentences instead of the full rent and message. Accusing of stalking, since I'm the one stalked, it is not libel, it is provable by her comments about me and following me side to side. Facts matter as always. Stay in the shadows. Bullshit, Michael. You committed libel per your interpretation of the law, and claiming victim status doesn't justify it. If you had a legitimate case, which you don't, you would have already taken legal steps about the alleged harassment. Proven techniques. Oh, you mean the mastery of the double standard? By the way, the use of your real name or your opinion doesn't matter. Arguments have never been a credible counter-argument. I'm not surprised, though. I've taken note that you still won't answer Andy's questions. To Vince Mahoney, you jumped the gun prematurely and ejaculated the statement. It's not answering Andy. Typical for you. Using my real name, just referencing all of my state and federal IDs. First, I know you haven't been answering Andy. That's the point. Instead, you hemmed and hawed and done everything to keep from answering. Second, the double standard is in reference to your tactics. Resort to personal attacks and vulgarity after complaining about their use against you. Oh, hey, Michael. When we're on the subject of facts mattering, why didn't you identify the brass on a Riemel sword as gold? And why did you say the Italian Bibe sword was plastic? Were these intentional lies of yours or just really bad mistakes? Sorry, Andy. Michael's too busy pursuing a comment record on Jason's blog to answer your questions. In fact, he'll probably get around to doing that never. So busy. Good Lord, man. Download the report and please wait for the much ballyhooed white paper. That will answer everything, lol. Brad Boimler, guess you downloaded and read the 200-page report. Awesome. A man who wants facts and does not just spew out net gibberish, or does he? In our XRF tests, they show gold, not brass. It's a gold overlay, that's a fact. The Bibe swords, I said, were simple, base metals. Some were cast iron and others were composites. The composite was a plastic composite, as evidenced by the lower in China ripoff of Toscano's version. The Bibe versions only showed the sword as famous, not that the sword we showed is fake. Even the university dated it as most likely old, but you keep writing modern fake. The XRF of the sword was tested shows it to match hundreds of known Riemel and peer-reviewed artifacts. But you do not talk about that. So talk about Bibe all you want, but try dealing with it in the actual reported facts. I'm happy that you would confirm the self-propelled world's greatest treasure hunter still doesn't know the difference between brass and gold. I remember what you went from saying the sword was bronze and not brass to arguing that brass with 1/3 zinc is actually ancient and not modern. Where's your XRF data? Did they say the sword is brass or bronze? You know it can't be both, right? So if your XRF data says bronze, then what? You stated the sword had a special quality to it. What's the special quality? The sword has an ancient ocean navigation device built into it, which causes the sword to point true north. Such magnetic qualities are only found on authentic items of antiquity, not cast iron or manufactured stone replicas. Being an accomplished explorer, I assume you understand the proper use of a compass, and that it points magnetic north, not true north. I also assume you understand the need for varying degrees of declination to give you an accurate reading of true north. How is the sword unique in all of history to be the only item that can break the laws of magnetism and point to true north? How is it that Dr. Brichot, an accomplished professional, could have missed a lodestone magnetite or other iron body in the sword large enough to have it point to true north? How did you come to the conclusion that the sword had these properties? Did your XRF results show the lodestone or high iron content of the sword? Oh, crazy hair, you're so funny. I see your humbleness and humility lasted just long enough for you to hit the enter button on your keyboard. I'm not liberal. Care not one bit when someone thinks of me. You, on the other hand, need acceptance for validation. There's a huge difference in the two. No matter what I do or say or post or write, two things are written in stone. Your opinion of me will not change, and your opinion of me is totally inconsequential to me in the universe. Andy, further review. If you go back in time, Andy, you will find that I have before invited you to record, debate, present your case in open forum. That was me reaching out to you. Now I understand your shyness, but when you speak at most to 20 people at a time, when I speak to thousands, up to millions. But the issue is you cannot come to the middle line no matter what. I can even compliment your abilities, and I'm jealous you sculpt. And thank you for correcting bad facts, but you cannot come my way no matter what, and I can prove it. I'm open-minded and willing to take risks, and you were poisoned by the system and seek the security of not taking a risk. Here is why we are oil and water, and no matter what I do to create in public or say you will be at odds with me, and a prime example could be, say I win the Medal of Honor. You see it, and all you could say in comment would be, did you see how stupid he looked? Or they are stupid to award him that. And there's your lot in life. We are this way. Why? I am fully sure everything you detest and fear. Conservative, faith-driven, and published, wildly successful in numerous disciplines, and recognized, wealthy and able to create wealth, courageous, daring, and fearless, and innovative, an inventor, someone who can manifest great and big things, someone who people follow and talk and love, someone who gets national and international exposure, and I could go on and on and on. You do not value any of these things, and you think these things are distasteful. Most likely you even hate that I'm Elvin, who supports Bangalore, since your own institution voted to boycott Bangalore at the anthropology level. You are none of what I am, and I am none of what you are yet. I have offered to debate you, share your views and opinion, but all you can do is slash and attack. Why, I'm 100% what you detest, and most unpatriotic on top to boot. And it really makes me evil, does it not? At least I'm honest, direct, and courageous enough to be out there, and let alone people like you suppress history and truth. I'm going to develop the White Viticola Scholarship, and have your stories, and it will have you live long in history, and it's award for the most opposing exarchaeologist or anthropologist who finally turned tails from the system. You will be the epitome of what is not to be. For someone who just said your opinion of me is totally inconsequential to me and the universe, you really go out of your way to tell everyone just how much of a special snowflake you are. I see more personal attacks, but nothing of substance. You boast of speaking to thousands or to millions, yet you can't even answer questions from just one ex-archaeologist with a blog. Yawn. You forgot humble, honest, and able to stay focused and follow through. Oh, wait, never mind. Few, if any, of the qualities that you suppose you have are relevant to your ability to tell the truth and embrace contrary evidence. I don't care for your personal life and haven't written a single word about it. As for the record, the Federation rejected the resolution to boycott Bangalore. I was against it. I thought it was a terrible idea that made zero sense. Also, Michael, I don't recall ever getting an invitation from you about debating the Remulan sword. Could you refresh my memory? The emails I got from you during Swordgate were, as far as I remember, legal threats. By the way, the Mail article still shows a picture of the Remulan sword boss that's in the British Museum, only it still has her copyright mark on it. It says it came from Oak Island. Must be embarrassing since you said you'd had that fixed back in December. It's genuinely interesting to read comments here at Vitacola's blog, where Michael continuously attempts to metaphorically measure his penis against everyone else. There's a term for people who constantly brag about themselves, seek to elevate their social status above others in their peer group, look to be the center of attention, and constantly seek admiration of others. NPD.
Such people often seek out titles and ranks they hardly deserve, like commanders. It's called narcissistic personality disorder. Those that rarely admit they are afflicted to themselves, much less others, and they almost never seek treatment, and it would seem they rarely use paragraphs when they write. The anthropologist in me is quite fascinated.
I've seen others post similar types of posts regarding prize hunter and narcissistic personality disorder. I do not know what credentials you have, if any, in the health medical field. Regardless, though, making an armchair diagnosis, so to speak, about a person based solely on their blog posts is distasteful and counterfactual. I feel that it's important here on Andy's blog, as well as on Jason's blog, that those who oppose Mr. Crazy Hair actually stick to known facts. I do not believe that the facts bear out that Mr. Crazy Hair has an official diagnosis of NPD.
Having served in medicine as a nurse tech, it would surprise me if he did have a diagnosis, though it would not surprise me if he did have NPD. The majority of people who actually have NPD refuse to see anyone for diagnosis, much less treatment. Nor do I like Prize Hunter, his tactics, his hypotheses, and his techniques, his bravado, nor quite frankly anything else about man. It might be very well be true that Prize Hunter does indeed have NPD.
Well, I'm a doctor, not a counselor. That diagnosis would be best made by a clinical counselor, psychologist or psychiatrist, in a clinical setting not on the internet. Let Mr. Crazy Hair fire away with his patented brand of insult, and ignore style of deflection. But please, as truly open-minded and scholars that we are, leave the name-calling and pseudo-psychiatry to the likes of Mr. Crazy Hair. Okay, everyone, I've been driving, so I was only able to read comments and make one while stopping to get fuel. Since Crazy Hair is gracing us with his presence here, I'd like to focus his attention on some Remulan sword questions. These aren't directly relevant to the issue around what he and Sinclair are planning or doing with In Search of the Giants, but they're relevant to the larger question of Crazy Hair's credibility. Crazy Hair's inability to acknowledge and account for contrary facts shows his refusal or inability to embrace the most basic tenets of doing science. Crazy Hair has said many incorrect things about what he claims is a Riemel sword, and about many other Herculean hilted swords that he came to light after he made his claim. I've already asked 2 questions. Why did you identify this brass as gold? And why did you say the Italian Bibe sword was plastic? Crazy Hair maintained that the Riemel sword actually had gold leaf on it. This is ridiculous assertion, for which he provided no evidence. He claimed the shiny parts visible on the hilts are gold leaf, with their chest brass from which the fake patina has been removed. Notice that the gold is on the high spots. His claim that he's now reiterated in the comments here is illogical nonsense. I'm not sure I understand his response to my question about why he said the Italian Bibe sword was plastic. I just checked and I remembered it wrong. He claimed it was cast iron, although he apparently also did say it was plastic at some point. He can assure you that it's neither. I have possession of the thing for quite some time. It's a copper alloy sword. Here's what Crazy Hair said during Swordgate. We have attempted to contact the sellers of the sword to Bibe over 10 different times. I think they're worried that contact because they're posting pictures from the Naples Museum but sending a different cast iron sword in response. So what actually happened is when the story broke, people started looking at the sword and were all started asking questions of the sword. And the people in Italy that were selling it, actually Bibe shut them down because Bibe realized that they were taking pictures of the museum sword with unintelligible supply to Bibe. And they were actually supplying different sword that was fake, cast iron and whatever. So I'm not sure they're going to want to answer a lot of questions when they're using authentic photos to ship a fraudulent piece of merchandise. The story of this is a complete baloney, a total lie. The story pictured in the Bible was the one that was shipped. It was a copper alloy sword, similar to the Riemel sword. Crazy Hair has never produced any evidence to support his claims of an original sword in the Naples Museum. He uses the claim that an original sword exists to deflect questions about why there are so many Hercules hilted swords floating around. The contention, like his claim that the sword had gold on it, was apparently based on the XRF data that is never released. If his XRF data were correct, and the sword is bronze, why is he trying to argue that the Riemelans made brass artifacts with 1/3 zinc? His attempts to find Riemelan artifacts with such high levels of zinc amounts to an admission that the St. Mary's metallurgical data are actually correct and his XRF data are not. Michael, I just refreshed my memory and watched your short video from immediately after the COI episode, where they gave the metallurgical results. You did indeed say your test is XRF, by the way, not XFR, indicating nothing like the levels of zinc reported by Brousseau. So why do you care about finding Riemelan brass with high levels of zinc if her results were wrong and yours were right? But try to set your fame aside for a moment and just answer the sword questions when you get a chance. Don't forget about the little people. Thanks. Andy, during Swordgate, I contacted the Naples Museum via email with links to the images of the swords. I finally got a typed letter earlier this summer stating that they had nothing in their collection that resembled the sword. They do, however, have various votives, offering in the form of Hercules. My 2 main points here were already raised in various ways in my readers today while I was on the road. I'm open to the idea of having a debate, some kind of structured conversation with you about the Riemelan sword and the other Hercules hilted swords. I have 2 main concerns that would have to be addressed in order to really talk about how to make it happen. However, both having to do with transparency. There's no way I'm going to collaborate with you on something that you control and be part of your brand on your website. Why? Because you've repeatedly shown yourself to be untrustworthy. You have shown that using distortion, misrepresentation, and outright lies is part of your MO. I've been in a lot of disagreements with colleagues, but none of those professional colleagues have ever questioned my credentials, expertise, or my intentions. It's just not part of a professional discussion about facts, evidence, and interpretation. But you do it all the time, including in the comments on this post when you imply that I was an anti-Elven. When you give people reasons not to trust you, they won't. Maybe you never learned that lesson. Let me give you another one. Data. When professionals have a debate, they refer to data. I have been open with mine, but you have not provided yours. In short, you have not provided any reason for me to take your word for anything, and plenty of reasons not to. I have more credibility in my little finger than you do in your whole body, and it would be stupid to trust you with it. Despite what you may think, I'm not stupid. You have made references to your XRF data numerous times to support your claims, but have not provided it. How could I evaluate claims based on data I do not have access to? In order for me to have a real discussion about the sword with you, we'll need to provide your data ahead of time, so that we both have access to the same information. And you'll need to get me a copy of Commodus' secret, so I can read your argument about the sword there. If you want to talk about a sword discussion, it'll have to be something that isn't controlled by you, and you'll have to finally let us see this XRF data that you've all been hanging your claims on. If you can't agree to these minimum requirements, the discussion is over. You're not ready to have a real discussion about the sword.
As one poster pointed out, it is not about money for me. It's about demonstrating how you evaluate claims and evidence. Without transparency in the medium and the data, I'm not interested.
Questions for Michael and the Remelin sword. What was the model the XRF used? What was your specific methodology to capture the results? Where was it done? How was the sword positioned? What part of the sword was sampled? How many times was the sword sampled? Can we see the results for each?
The button is too busy hiding the truth. He will not show his findings, because he's doing exactly what he accuses others of, withholding the truth. He knows great answers to every question, because he's hiding the truth. If he had good data that would hold up, he'd produce it, but he doesn't, so he keeps it to himself. That way, he can never be wrong. He's an amazing fraud who dances around every question, never answering them, tries to confuse you, all the while tooting his own horn, petting his own ego.
I'm just waiting for Prize Hunter 3.0, in which you probably claim that Swordgate followers were threatening your life, so you can change your name and try to reinvent yourself all over again. I really don't want to pick on you like this. It almost feels mean, and no sane person wants to be like that. But damn it, Michael, you really do bring out the worst in people. I somehow read all or most of the comments on Jason's blog. I made it to the bottom here only by skimming and ignoring crazy-ass comments. They made my brain hurt. Can we just move on and ignore him and write interesting, thoughtful stuff? You're right. He will not or cannot answer a simple question. He only wants attention. Or perhaps he wants Andy to send him a cookie for increasing the post count here. I'm out. It's been a blast. See you all down the road. Sounds like you're jealous that Andy and Jason can get more legit comments than the ones you have to buy. And why are you hiding the truth by not releasing your long overdue white paper? And you don't actually have any non-self-appointed titles as credentials, or just the ones you've made up for yourself. Still not willing to answer the questions? They should be easy for you. The difficulty, of course, is that they show you've been lying about your 100% confirmed Remelin sword from the beginning. I understand why you wouldn't want to admit that, but it would help your credibility if you would. You've got nowhere to go but up. Here, I'll simplify the question so even you can understand it. What was the percentage of zinc in the Remelin sword? All you need to do is enter a number. You can even just copy-paste if you want. I know you can do it. If you can't, I think my work here is done and you can stop commenting. Andy, I did answer, and you're avoiding again. The exact number the university said, 1/3. Thus they said not ancient, except several hundred, no, 1,000, well-known peer-reviewed artifacts in the museums have over 1/3. Read my 200-page story. Your info and the facts are wrong. Can't debate you if you're too lazy to read the report. So you admit that your XRF data are not correct. You said in the video that you got nowhere near the level of zinc. So now you admit your data are wrong. And those data would include your identification of gold. You had a golden, or was it brass, opportunity to earn credibility. All they had to say was, can't debate you, and left it at that. Not only would it have been one of the few times you were truthful, it might have earned you some respect. I tried to download your downsized report last night, but I was trying to, and it was blocked. Viewing the content via Bookface. What page in your study are the over one-third artifacts listed? In the portion up to page 100, you never cited them, so I'm assuming they're in the disorganized list of references and research material that follow in the next 100. Also, would you be so kind as to show the full XRF data that you took? Not showing all the data in our report. How did you account for the refined copper and lead within the sword? Are you saying it doesn't exist, or the refining process existed, per Romulan metallurgists circa 400 BCE? I think he's saying he got exactly one-third, which is coincidentally the highest amount documented in antiquity, probably because of the alloying process involved. Zinc vaporizes at a temperature lower than copper melts. Also, would you be so kind as to show the full XRF data that you took? How do you account for the refined copper and lead within the sword? Are you saying it doesn't exist, or that a refining process existed per Romulan metallurgists then? I think he's saying he got exactly one-third, which is coincidentally the highest amount documented in antiquity. More complex methods of alloying zinc into copper didn't come around until a few things happened in history. Crazy hair, you must have so much time on your hands to be able to provide so much insight to so many people. I didn't leave. I'm going to be fair and impartial here. Michael, Andy, this is directed at both of you. I didn't know what the point would be. Michael has ducked all the questions since the outset of this. Richard Everson, each item was answered or addressed, just at different times from your ejaculation that started I did not. Truth matters, facts matter. I have asked it twice, and have seen no response. I ask again. I stated the sword had a special quality to it. What was the special quality? The sword had an ancient ocean navigation device built into it, which caused the sword to point true north. Such magnetic qualities are only found on authentic items of antiquity, not cast iron or manufactured stone replicas. Being an accomplished explorer, I assume you understand the proper use of a compass, and the fact that it points magnetic north, not true north. I also assume you understand the need for varying degrees of declination to acquire an accurate reading of true north. How is this sword unique in all of history, to be the only item that can break the laws of magnetism and point to true north? How is it that Dr. Brazeau, an accomplished professional, could have missed a lodestone, magnetite, or other iron body in the sword, large enough to have it point true north? How did you come to this conclusion, that the sword had these properties? Did your XRF results show the lodestone or high iron content in the sword? Have you not looked up my technology science and research work in 189 countries? Each of you offer feeble reasoning and try to paint me as if I do not know or adopt the scientific method, when in fact you are wrong.
Actually, this is exactly where you go off the rails, Crazy Hair. You've got some technology work, but nothing that seems to be independently verifiable science. Unfortunately, one of the key characteristics of science is repeatability, and so science focuses on telling all the details, so that anyone can repeat your tests and validate your claims. There's even a push in scientific publishing to make people deposit full datasets in online repositories when they publish.
This is continued in writing. Science articles follow a single general format 95% of the time, which makes it easy to find information. You've got questions about both methods and results, which would be in sections called methods and results in a scientific paper. Instead, we've got to dig around in a disorganized mess to find your claims. So Crazy Hair cannot give a firm answer for the amount of zinc, the exact one-third, the number the university said. He refuses to detail the XRF in any way, much less provide the original data. So not only is there no verified number, there isn't even a number to discuss. He also wants to be accepted as established that the number fits within the set of samples of the period claimed. And no, I did not say my XRF was wrong. That was misdirection statement by you, created by you. And now I increase your comments. I'm gonna move on. If you can't agree to openly debate. But Michael, wait, you still haven't answered my questions. Alright, sorry. Run away, Michael, run away. Bye-bye, little man. Let's see if Andy has the guts and facts to join and do a recorded debate. I venture to say he's just like you, brave behind a keyboard, not wishing to be exposed. I wonder, Michael, that since Andy and Dr. Brichot have been completely transparent and laid all their cards out on the table regarding the evidence they have collected for all the world to see, would you be willing to do the same? Would you provide Andy with the results of your XRF scans and any other evidence? You have to make a level playing field. Correct, thanks. Not providing the XRF data on which his claims are based would be a deal killer. Are you now saying you got 1/3 zinc in your XRF data, even though in your oh crap video right after the episode aired, you emphatically stated that you got nowhere near that level of zinc reported by Brichot? Andy, deflection once again. Only you are to deflect. Next time the report is out, and we'll provide the XRF as we did for Epi Times Man, and whip and open the debate, and we will peel this onion one by one. Either provide the data upon which you base your claims, or we have nothing to debate. It's pretty simple. I would think that even you could understand the concept. Crazy Hair, next the report is out, and we'll provide the XRF as we did for Epi Times. What report is out that contains the XRF data? Nothing about a new report from you, or from several Bookface pages, or your history blog. Or are you referring to the elusive white paper? The multidisciplinary forensic history research group rewriting history of pre-Columbian contact in the Salian Earths, where the Epi Times stated in their article that they said in a comprehensive white paper about the evidence that suggests Remulans made it to Nova Scotia.
The paper is authored by Crazy Hair and several other scientists and is to be published in the spring. Epi Times previewed it. Are you saying the white paper is now released? Andy, I think you should be grateful to Michael for one thing. His comments present a very convincing case. He not only doesn't understand science, he's mostly concerned about drumming up publicity.
It's no secret he wants a TV show of his own. I think that's the real reason he teamed up with Scott Sinclair. Oddly, he insists he can't convince you to join his side, but still offers to debate you publicly. I guess the pursuit for more recognition makes for strange bedfellows. Nothing more when faced with opportunity to debate and open, you each slink back behind your keyboards and throw verbal jabs. Well, somebody that's really an adult, hopefully Andy, put your childless jabs aside and deal with the forum in an open debate. You can just keep using the stupid excuse that you didn't answer. Jeez, wimps, slinking back your courage to defend your beliefs. This is rich. This is coming from the man who dodges questions so frequently, I'm convinced you could dance between water drops in the shower. You could just keep using the stupid excuse if you did not answer it, as long as you don't answer the question, or we will. Law, what is Crazy Hair? Is he 12 years old? Crying about insults when being rude and insulting, telling on them, threatening legal action, anyone who disagrees, taking his ball and going home, and now copycatting anything anyone says about him. That's not the reaction of a 50-some man, or even of a child acts either. The button is having a midlife crisis, or his parents and teachers were horrible at teaching, and most of us were taught it was unacceptable behavior, and outgrew that kind of behavior in elementary. Where's the white paper? Done with your BS and excuses? I was doing a little online fact-finding about the Oak Island show when I remembered how batshit crazy the Crazy Hair guy seemed to be on TV. It usually doesn't take long to tell when someone is a completely mental, self-important buffoon. But with him, it was almost instantaneous. So I switched gears to see if it offers any thoughts to confirm me suspicions, and me search brought me here. And any other commenters try to give this lunar rational response is a waste of time, and only adds to whatever attention he's seeking.
It's painfully obvious this guy deserves no credibility whatsoever. But I guess in Hollywood, if someone feels like latching onto a crazy fringe wannabe, history sleuth, they can make a buck, and then it's justified.
And now I am late to the party, checking to see what the person in the older Oak Island episodes was, and found this site. Wow. Watching a group of amazingly intelligent people get completely under the skin of Mr. Crazy Hair is highly entertaining. He had phony written all over him. Every time he types one of his juvenile replies, He demonstrates his ability to bully, not to mention that always present ego. Little do you realize that I've been standing on his controls the whole time. Oh, what kind of control is that? He seems to have found some dimensional space bridge or something. Whatever. It might be the one that Cyrano Jones and I were chucked into in the first place. I do not know about that. However, I will return to your timeline in the past and destroy it. He's thinking 11th dimensionally. So long, stickers. Doesn't he mean suckers? I'm not going back in there, and neither are you. So long. When this is over, you will call me a god. I think Mr. Crazy Hair disintegrated himself.
I think Mr. Crazy Hair disintegrated himself.
I wish that were true, but I don't think that's what happened. Is everyone all right? Good. Good. I didn't get sucked in. Good. Yes. Excellent. I don't think any of us did. I don't think any of us did. Is everyone all right? I think so. The space bridge is kind of screwed. He jumped into the past, but we will defeat him. Well, I certainly didn't see that one coming. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.